Since last week I did my favorite book to movie adaptations, I figured what better way to follow that up than with my least favorite book to movie adaptations. As always, with my unpopular opinion videos, I'm not trying to throw shade at anyone who does like these because we're all entitled to our own opinion. The first book I have to talk about is actually one that I don't own, and that is City of Bones. I was not the biggest fan of the City of Bones books, the Mortal Instruments books I should say. I read the first few when they came out and I enjoyed them, but just never kept up with the series. I already knew that the movie had pretty bad reviews, but I don't mind a bad movie now and again, and that wound up being a really good thing because this movie was terrible. It was a cringe fest, in all honesty, and not just because the movie itself was like awkward or poorly acted, just relating it to the book. It was so poorly done. I can't talk about all the things I wanted to talk about because some of them were spoilers. The incesty bits and how the movie threw it out there real quick. They didn't drag it out like the book did, for those of you who've read it and know what I'm talking about in that regard. And it was just so miscast in so many roles. Casting Jonathan Rhys-Meyers as Valentine was one of the most awkward casting decisions I've ever seen because he was nothing like the Valentine in the book. Honestly, a lot of the decisions were nothing like they were in the books, and that whole movie was an utterly enjoyable experience for me. Sort of in the same way that bad action movies are an utterly enjoyable experience, but just a terrible book-to-movie adaptation on a whole. The second book I have on this list is one that is a book that I really thoroughly enjoy, and that is World War Z by Max Brooks. It is an oral history of the zombie war, but it doesn't necessarily have an exact plot. It reads more like a series of short essays and a very long cultural study on what would happen to the world after a zombie outbreak. It's really very interesting. I'm not big on zombie books, but this is much more of a cultural study than an action-packed zombie book. But the movie for this is everything that this book was not. I did enjoy the movie, but it was the most bland, forgettable zombie movie I've probably ever seen. It starred Brad Pitt, which was the best decision that the movie could have made because honestly Brad Pitt is charismatic enough, even when he's clearly not trying, to carry a movie that has no interesting plot. Despite enjoying the movie, it's on this list because it did turn the book into something it wasn't. It took this incredibly interesting, unique story and turned it into the most bland version that it could. The next book/movie I'm going to talk about is one that I'm cheating on because I haven't actually seen the movie. I've seen a few clips and I've seen the trailers, and that's enough for me to add it to this list because I refuse to watch it. And that is My Sister's Keeper by Jodi Picoult. I'm not as big of a fan of Jodi Picoult as I used to be. I really loved her books when I was in high school, but I do feel like I've sort of outgrown them and they don't hold up as well as they used to. But this is one book that does hold up. I've reread it several times, but I reread it again this spring. I still love the story. It's still a 4-star read for me. It tells the story of a girl who was born so that she could be a donor for her sister who has cancer. Originally it was just cord blood, but as her sister continues to need things, she continues to donate whatever her sister needs. It's a very interesting story, it's very heartbreaking, and I enjoy it so much. When I first heard there was going to be a movie, I was excited, and then I saw the trailers, and then I looked at the cast list and I noticed some things were not right. Like the fact that my favorite character in the book was Julia Romano. Julia Romano is not in the movie at all. One of my favorite aspects of the book was the love story between Julia and Campbell. And that's not, a minor side plot. Julia is a point of view character in this book, and she's not in the movie at all. Alec Baldwin was cast as the lawyer who's supposed to be in his early 30s, and they changed the ending completely. I don't know if the movie is any good on its own, because I haven't seen it, so I won't comment on, the movie being bad or good. But as an adaptation, they took 3 of my favorite things about the book, 3 of the things that made this book so incredibly special and interesting to me, and just removed them completely from the movie. It's on this list for that, even though I haven't seen it. The fourth book I have on this list is one that I think a lot of people would have on a list like this. Not everyone, but I think a lot. And that is The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. I had to read this book and watch this movie for a class in high school. And the book was not my favorite thing ever, although it was very enjoyable. But when we had to watch the movie, it was one long cringe fest. The biggest thing is that the movie tried so hard to be an inoffensive children's story and not be banned by churches or religions. The book is quite anti-religion, although I know Philip Pullman has said various things, but in a lot of respects this book is a response to C.S. Lewis and his Chronicles of Narnia. In this book, the villains are sort of a metaphor for religion and the church. And the movie tried very hard to sort of sweep that under the rug and have it not be a thing, which was just very awkward to watch, and it made it feel very stilted because it's like trying to take religion out of the Chronicles of Narnia. The story just doesn't hold up without it because it is such a central point. And I think that was one of the biggest flaws of this movie and why there were never any sequels to it, even though the books are a trilogy. And the final movie on this top 5 worst adaptations list is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. And I know this is somewhat controversial, but I do love all the Harry Potter movies. I should say that up front. I love them all. I think they're all wonderful movies. However, as an adaptation, I thought the sixth one was fairly horrid. I'm sure this is a rather unpopular opinion. I do understand that this is a very long book. Things have to be taken out. It's a different medium. It's not going to be exactly the same story. And I've understood this with The Order of the Phoenix, which is the longest Harry Potter book, and I still think that's quite a good movie. This one did something very different, in that not only did it take out a lot of the story, and it took out some very crucial things to the story, but it also added things that were entirely unnecessary. And I'm trying not to turn this into just a very long rant, but the whole scene at the burrow with the fire and Bellatrix Lestrange showing up and fighting in the cornfield or the wheat field or whatever field it was. Why did that exist? Has anyone determined why that scene existed when they cut so many important things from this movie to add that? I don't understand. This is on this list just for that scene. That one scene. Why? What did that add to the movie? What did that add to the story that everything else they cut didn't? I remember being in theaters, watching that for the first time, and just feeling confused. I knew these books. I'd read these books. There was never any burning down the burrow. That was not something that existed in the books. That was not something that was needed in the books. And yet, it was in the movie. Feel free to tell me why I'm wrong about any of these movies down in the comments, if they're some of your favorite movie adaptations. I would love to hear your opinions on that. And also, let me know what some of your least favorite book-to-movie adaptations are. I'd be curious what movies make you cringe. As always, thank you for commenting and thank you for watching. I will see you guys again soon.